Welcome to Colonial Classics, a food demonstration with the House of the Seven Gables live in the Gables Cafe kitchen. Tonight, I'm going to walk you all through making a Colonial pear marmalade, or marmalade, from the 1596 cookbook, The Good Housewife's Jewel by Thomas Dawson. The House of the Seven Gables strives to be a welcoming, thriving historic site and community resource that engages people of all backgrounds in our inclusive American story. Continuing this work takes effort, time, and money. We would like to thank our members who are here tonight and invite you to become a member if you are not. We have some great programs and member events lined up this year. We have included a link for membership in the chat. We have also included a link for donations to help us cover the costs for this demonstration and to support our work as a community resource. Any amount is greatly appreciated. We encourage you to support small businesses in your community whenever you can. I would personally like to thank all the people who have supported this program and got it running safely during COVID-19, especially Julie Arison Bishop and Deb Costa, who are here with me tonight as my support group. If you have a question or comment at any time during the demonstration, please type it into the chat and it will be read aloud to me. The goal of this demonstration is to connect with everyone, so do not be afraid to engage in the chat either with me or with each other. Now, who's ready to get started? Maneuvering time. How's everyone doing today? It's been a beautiful spring day. Had lunch outside, it was great. All right. All set. Hi again. All right, so pear marmalade. So I'm going to start off by saying the difference between marmalade, jam, and jelly, because that's always something that I have gone very confused on. So marmalade is different than marmalade. It's sort of a precursor to marmalade. It's supposed to be more candy-like than marmalade. Marmalade, you use the entire fruit, just like how I'm going to use it. And it's the same way as jam. Jam, marmalade, and marmalade, you use the whole fruit. You just cut it into pieces. But in marmalade and marmalade, you have chunks of the flavor. So even when you squash it up, you're still going to leave some of the chunks, so that way you have those nice bursts of flavor in your marmalade or marmalade. Whereas in jam, you don't have any of those chunks. So it's not necessarily smooth, but it doesn't have any significant chunks like you do in marmalade and marmalade. And then there's jelly, where although you are using the whole fruit, you're straining it, so you're not exactly having everything. And that's more clear and smooth, and you use it sort of in a different way than you would with jam, jelly, marmalade, and marmalade. No, jam, marmalade, and marmalade. So there's the differences. I've had multiple debates and discussions with friends about the differences with that. So I'm glad I finally got to look into that to get a clear answer. So I'm gonna turn on my stovetop now because we're gonna be needing to use that. So I have right now, there we go. So in this bowl, this pan right here, I have, that's gonna be the wrong burner. That's 3.5 cups of water. And I was able to get that number by doing math, which I'm not a fan of. So in the original recipe, which is actually Quince's, I'll tell you guys about Quince's later. It says, then take 2 pints of running water and put it into a brass pan, casting away 8 spoonfuls of one of the pints. So you're taking the 2 pints and then taking away some. And so doing the math, it actually ends up just being 3.5 cups of water. I don't know why they had to make it complicated. I really don't. So we're gonna cut up pears. I'll cut up most of them for you, but I'm just showing you the best way that I found to cutting the pears. We're using today Bosc pears, which you can find in your local store pretty easily. I did not realize there were so many different kinds of pears. Yeah, and then I just stand it up like that and Found some of the seeds. I missed some. So, yes, we're using Bosque because I like its honey flavor and I think it goes well with the rose water. It also is one of a good pair for when you're doing cooking because it doesn't lose its flavor when it's heated up. Unlike some of the other ones, like I believe it was Bartlett. Bartlett loses its flavor as you heat it up. It's actually best, Bartlett is best when it's fresh. Go away, seed. There we go. So with the Bosque that I'm using, although it is good heating up because it keeps its shape, which actually in this situation works a little against me because I want to squish it in order to make it into the marmalade. So it takes a little bit longer for it to heat up to be able to actually squish and use, but that's all right because you have a great smell in the house as it's going. So I don't think it's a bad thing. It just takes a little longer. So pears were brought over at the early stages of colonization over here in America, but they didn't last very long. This is not a very good, New England is not a very good region for growing pear trees. They work better in temperate regions. They actually originate in China and the Middle East. And they have been able to be grown in France, but they did not work well in New England. Pears are actually, does anyone know what state pears are the state fruit of? That proper sentence. Any ideas, any guesses? No guesses?
Not yet. Should we give it a minute to see if anybody types?
Yeah, I'll give you a minute. In the meantime, Deb's gonna pass me the evil amount of sugar that is in this recipe. Yeah. So we have a lot of sugar.
Kaylee, can you repeat the question one more time?
The question is, pears are the state fruit of which state in the US? Does anyone know about state fruits?
We have a few guesses for Oregon, a guess for Texas.
Whoever had Oregon had it right. It is a state fruit of Oregon. I hope you didn't cheat on that. No Googling ahead. But yeah, so pears actually grow really well in Washington State and Oregon. And so that's where we get the majority of our pears in the United States. All right, so now my water is boiling. So I'm going to put in these 6 cups of sugar, which is a lot. So you're gonna pour that in. I really am sorry for anyone that's on a diet because that's a lot. It's actually the reason I'm wearing my Star Wars apron today is because it's evil. How
You're
much?
getting a couple of clap emojis for the massive amount of sugar.
Okay. So once you pour that in there, you're gonna stir it up, and you want to stir it until it dissolves. All right. So we're just gonna keep on stirring. And if your water's nice and hot, it shouldn't take too long. This nice cloud of sugar in there. Please do be careful with hot sugar though. Sometimes it likes to jump out of the pan and hit your hand, and it's very unpleasant.
There was a question in the chat about what the state fruit of Massachusetts is. So Kaylee, now it's your turn. Would you like to guess what the state fruit of Massachusetts is?
Someone use Google. I don't know. Oh, I can guess.
You guess though.
I can guess.
You made everybody else guess.
The cranberry? Yay! Yes! I'm just like, it's the only one it really could be. Does anyone know the state bird of Massachusetts?
So you have a few people who are like, no, you're not Googling, it's a tradition.
It is, it really is. All right, so now that my water has gone nice and clear, all that sugar has been dissolved, the water feels very syrupy actually. It is still very, like it is liquid, but just pulling your spoon through it feels like you get a little bit of pressure from that. but you can't tell as much. All right, now I'm gonna put in the rose water. Now this is gonna get a bit bubbly. So definitely make sure your hands are out of the way for this as it sizzles. It sizzled last time and now it's not gonna sizzle. It's probably because it warmed up. All right, so we're gonna get that all nice in there. And they have a great smell once that goes in there because the rose water, it smells sort of like you just stepped into a field of roses and it's wonderful. It's a really great smell. I love roses. They're my favorite flower. And rose water has a lot of medical uses, sort of, not exactly I don't want to like tell anyone to just use rose water to fix all of their ailments.
You're not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor, 100% not a doctor. But apparently it has inflammatory properties. So a lot of people use it on their face for acne, or if they have a sore throat. So it's sort of way to help that way.
Yeah, that's some steak bird. We have the chickadee on there.
It is the chickadee,
And the
yes.
wild turkey is also another test.
The wild should be. It really should be with the amount we got wandering around here.
And then a couple of questions are, where did rose water kind of come from initially, and why did people start using it? And where did you get the rose water from?
Yes. All right. So as I'm answering that, I'm going to put the pears in here before this gets too hot. So definitely be careful when putting in your pears like that. Sorry, I got to do this nice and slow. Like I said, sugar splashing on hot sugar on you, not fun. All right, there we go. So yes, rose water. We have recipes of rose water going back to the Romans. It really originated in the Middle East. There's even a valley of roses over in that area. Today, I don't remember exactly where. It's over in that general region. And that is, there we go. Yeah, so originated in the Middle East and it's still very popular in some dishes in cooking, especially because of those nice remedy properties that it has. I got my rose water, so I got it from two different places because I bought the first batch and then realized I wasn't gonna have enough. So I bought the first batch from Total Wine in Burlington, Massachusetts. But they give you little bottles about this big. So I couldn't exactly use that for this. And then I finally found a nice big bottle, and by big bottle I mean that big, at Whole Foods in Melrose. So check your local Whole Foods, see if it's there. Could not find it in Stop and Shop, could not find it anywhere. I called a whole bunch of places and I couldn't seem to find it. All right, so I'm gonna switch these so I can so these need to sit for a while. The ones over here have been sitting for about 40 minutes and those ones are done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch pots here. I'm gonna grab a thing. I'm not gonna play with the hot pots. We're just gonna shuffle them. There we go. That was smart. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, it's a lot warmer here now. You can't see because it's just bubbling. Bubble down. There we go. You guys able to see that now? There we go. So you see how they've gotten nice and sort of golden compared to the white ones over there. So now they're all nice and squishable. So they're nice and soft. So I'm going to take my potato masher, or if you have an immersion blender, you can use that as well. And you're just going to squish them down to the bottom. They're going to catch up on the top there, so just beware of that. So it's going to get nice and squish. And that really starts releasing that nice smell. So you get the mixture of The sugar, which is a nice, when sugar cooks, it has such a nice, not overpowering, but a nice sweet smell to it, mixed with the rose water. And then the sort of honey-like smell that we have from the Bosque pear that we're using. You could use Anjou pears. Those are more citrusy, but I liked these ones. To be honest, I thought they tasted better. And I especially thought that they went well with the rose water. So I'm just gonna keep on squishing until we've got all of them. You don't want any massive chunks. So when I mentioned earlier about the marmalade and marmalade having chunks, you don't want any like big ones like what's kind of piling on top of here. You want them to be a little bit smaller because you want it to be spreadable. Am I getting any questions over there?
Nothing right now.
Nothing right now, no questions? All right, so the original recipe that I took this from the cookbook, does not use pears. Like I said, pears weren't you didn't get great access to them, although they were great for transporting because they took a long time to ripen. So even if you picked them before they were ripe, you could still transport them in a ship around the world, and they'd still be good by the time they got to their destination. So that made them sort of ideal for travel, but not always the most successful. They were still considered to be a show of wealth if you had some pears. But the recipe actually calls for quinces, which are sort of a mix between, they're closely related to a mix between pears and apples. And since we've already done something with apples, I thought we'd switch up and do pears. So quinces, we're blanking on where quinces came from. Also Roman cooking. So yes, again, they're Roman cooking, and you can't eat them when you pick them. They are inedible when you pick them. You have to cook them in order to eat them, because they are so tough on the inside. Let's see how we're doing with this. There we go. So you do have to cook them, which is and so because you have to cook them and you have to put in this amount of effort, that they become less popular. So you don't find them in your grocery stores today. Instead, you find pears and apples, which are far more popular. Has anyone ever had a quince? Oh, Julie's had a quince.
You can actually find them quite a bit around like the Cape Cod region.
Really?
There is something about the sandy soil and the growth pattern from my historic jam making days back in graduate school. There's a place down on the Cape called the Thornton Burgess Museum, which is in Sandwich, Massachusetts. And they have a really cool, I believe it's a 1903 historic jam kitchen, but quince jam is actually one of their most popular items because it's such a rarity and so hard to find. But the organization actually has a few quince trees on site. So they take the quince right from there and use it. They also use a lot of like beach plums kind of down in that region as well for the jam making process, which you get another fruit that is not delicious off the tree, but when you turn it into a jam, and again, add a ton of sugar to it.
Add a ton of sugar. Everything's great when you add a ton of sugar to it. Well, I know where I'm going to visit. I'm going down to Sandwich at some point to test that out. All right, so now these seem to be pretty decently squished. We've got a few bigger chunks, but those will cook down a little bit. And then you're just gonna stir until it becomes a little bit thicker. And these ones are starting to. Also, I have to keep my eye on 2 pots right now. Don't want anything to burn, especially the sugar. I like the sugar. I'm getting, I don't know if we can see if we're getting any pushes there. Yeah, there's some of that tapping sugar. Rude.
Can you use pectin, or do the pears have natural pectin?
The pears do have some natural pectin. So for those of you who don't know, pectin is sort of a sort of not a gelatin, because gelatin uses animals in order to make that. whereas pectin you use solely plants. So pectin can be found in the cell membrane of vegetables and fruits. The most popular ones are in apples, oranges, carrots, and a few others, but it's not as high in pears, which is what made me concerned when I first chose pears, because there's more pectin in quinces than pears.
How much rose water?
How much rose water? That was 6 tablespoons.
And cranberries have pectin.
Cranberries do have pectin. Yes, that was on the list. I have a very long list. I only memorized a few of them though.
And so it's also, how is this served?
How is this served? This is served, so I'm gonna put it, once it gets a little bit, I need to check with the back of my spoon. I'm going to put it in a jar for you guys, and you can have this on, I've been having it on toast every morning because this makes about 8 half pints. So 8 of these, and I just had them at my house, so I've been eating it every morning on my toast. I also would like to try and put it on maybe some cake. You can ice cream, really whatever works for you. I'm also going to try it in the next, so June 16th, when we have the next Colonial Classics, I'm going to put it on my cracknel, which I'm going to make.
Which you made last month.
Which I made last month. Yes, for those of you who aren't with us, I made some cracknels, which were the sort of best described as mini spice bagels. All right, so this is looking, let me check the back of my spoon to see how this is going. So it's I learned this from a family friend, so check the back of the spoon to see if it sticks.
Would you add cinnamon?
Would I add cinnamon? Ooh, adding cinnamon to this. Possibly.
It wouldn't mess with the process.
It wouldn't mess with the process. So it could work. So this is not ready yet. So as you can see, it's slipping off the spoon. I don't have anything sticking to the spoon. I'm actually going to squish it a little bit more. More squishing. This is really good if you just need to get out some energy to squish or any other emotions you might have. We love it when cooking helps you with your emotions. Are there any other questions over there? Let's see. Yeah, we talked about pectin. You can put pectin in this if you feel worried that it's not going to solidify or gelatinize. I don't actually know the proper term for that. Sorry. It's a lot of new vocabulary for me with jams, jellies, marmalades, and marmalettes, especially each of those terms individually.
Do you think that if you add pectin to it, it might make it more difficult to spread?
If you put pectin in it, it would make it more difficult to spread. I don't think it would make it more difficult to spread. It will make it firmer, yes. But that's definitely where you would get your more candy-like shape, because it sort of is supposed to be able to solidify, so that way you can shape it. So the pectin would help if that was your goal, to be able to actually make it into a candy. That would help with that process.
It's why cranberry sauce is so easy to make. Pectin is great.
I need to make cranberry sauce now, just so I can test out that it has such great pectin.
It gels up immediately.
That's great.
It does. And when you make a jam using like a berry, peaches, I believe, are pretty high in pectin too, but when you do like a berries, like you do a strawberry or a blueberry, because it is so low in pectin, unless you add pectin to something like that to kind of make a jam versus a marmalade, if you don't add pectin, it turns into what you would call a soft set jam. So it's actually almost more of like a sauce, or that it would spread incredibly easy when it's that soft set versus having a little bit of that pectin in it.
Yeah. Trying to speed this up a little bit. Like I said, guys, it takes some time. It takes a while. This had been there for 40 minutes before you guys even got here. And of course, I'm gonna have to see what that's gonna do over there. We still have that nice golden color, which at the moment the bubbles are covering.
For your canning process, are you going through and doing like the full like sanitized canning process, or are you doing like a non-long-term preserve?
At the moment today, I'm not doing a long-term preserve because I'm planning on probably giving this to coworkers, so they should go pretty fast. So if I were to do a long-term canning process, I would have had a separate, very large pot right here filled with water, and I would be boiling my jars, and in a separate one, I would be boiling my covers. I would need my jarring kit that I got for Christmas. Thank you. And to be able to use that, because you have to be able to reach in and grab those boiling hot ice glass jars. So there's special equipment that you can buy for that. You could try and use tongs. That would make me very nervous about dropping it. But you have to move very quickly with it. So you have to take them out, sit them upright. Well, it's best if when you put them in the water, it's best to put them in facing up. So when you take them out, you just sort of tip so that way it gets the water out, instead of having to flip them upside down. Place them down, quickly fill them, and then quickly taking tongs or some sort of that. Usually it comes, the jarring kit comes with it. Put those on top and then let it set. You're going to hear a popping noise when it, and so that's how you know that you have a seal, is when it does that popping sound.
Could you use a candy thermometer to judge the temperature?
You could. I haven't been judging any temperature. I've just been doing it by that spoon test to see if it stays onto the spoon, because if it stays on the spoon, it's spreadable, I believe. Oh, might be. I'm not really good.
And if you are making a jam versus a marmalade, if you're making a jam, I believe the technique is kind of called like flash in the pan. And you would stir the jam, which doesn't have as much liquid in it as what Kaylee is making does. But if you stir it, it gets to a point where when you take a quick swipe through the pot, you'll actually be able to see the bottom of the pan for a couple of seconds. And that's when you know that a jam is ready to be jarred.
Yeah, you can't do that with this. You kind of had to go with your gut on it. This is probably pretty close. Turn this down so we have less bubbles so you can see it. Yeah, it's looking pretty close to made it previously. Yeah, and it's reduced a bit, which is what I wanted. It's getting a little better and sticking. Yeah, there we go. We got some, you can't really see it very well, but we have some bits that are sticking. Oh, so
you use paraffin to seal the jar.
what I use, what was that?
Paraffin wax to seal the jar.
Long-term
Storage.
storage.
I have never done that. I didn't actually know what that was until everyone just told me right now. No, I've been able to just with these mason jars that just the usual sort of ball mason jar. Been able to work pretty well.
But what we are doing is not meant to be kind of put up for months or years on end. It's meant to be
Faster.
used probably within a few weeks to be in food safety.
Yeah. Yes.
Like Kaylee said, by not going through the whole process of sanitizing jars and waxing and sealing the lids. This is not a long-term, for us, for our demonstration, it's not a long-term preservation. If you wanted to take the extra steps, you can certainly make it that longer-term preservation. Make a lovely gift for the holidays.
Yes. All right. I'm going to put this in a jar because it seems pretty good right now. So yeah, we're gonna go over here. We're gonna turn this off. Oh, there we go. And we're gonna do this carefully because it's very warm. There. All right. You know, we're going to be jarring please get one of these. They're absolutely amazing because they literally go right in there. Fits perfectly, which I love. We have a scooper. I didn't think this fully approved. I need to move this. We love it when we don't 100% plan through our schemes. All right. This. But you can really see that nice golden color there. Just gonna scoop. Don't put your hand on the glass when you put the hot liquid in there. I'm not going to say that's from a personal experience, but it's probably not the best. All right, see how easy that is? I love it. So it's in there, and then you're just gonna leave it, not touch, because the longer you look at it, the longer it's going to take for it to actually solidify. I spent the majority of the day staring at it. Here we go. Yep, and yeah, it came out the same color. I'm checking color to make sure it's worked the same as the first time I made it. So here we go. We got a nice match. You can see bits and pieces. And there it is, nice and cold. And see how it does gloop, and we have those chunks. You can kind of see them in there. They're kind of clearer, so it makes it a little bit difficult. But because of the chunks, when you spread it, it's not gonna be a smooth spread. It's gonna have bits and pieces on it. But yeah, there we go. Any questions? Yeah, that's hot. Move that over there. We'll pick up this one. This one's nice and cold. I've been storing them in the fridge. Yeah. Yes, and so it's gonna kind of have sort of a honey sort of flavor to it, which is what I really liked, especially when using the Bosque pear. It worked out really well, and so I think it's gonna pair very nicely with the cracknels.
So there's a lot of beautiful, bravo, well done, great color, looks delicious.
Great. I do love the color. It's such a nice golden color.
You want
And
to
then
show it on the toast too, Kaylee, because
On
somebody
the
was like,
Yes.
toast anyone?
Toast. So here's some of the toast. I don't want to pick it up because I want to eat it later. So everyone see that? Is that showing up?
Yep.
There we go. Yes. But there you can see sort of like how it clumps there. It's not a nice even spread, but that's that little burst of flavor that you get, which I love. All right. Do we have any final questions?
Yummy meal in itself.
Yeah, meal itself, yes. Like I said, I've been having this for breakfast for about a week. All right, so thank you so much for joining us today. Please come and join us next month, June 16th. We're not exactly going to have a demonstration. We're going to wrap up, because this is going to be our last Colonial Classics for the year, on our topic of tea. And we're going to sit down with our manager of collections, Susan, and she's going to show us some of the tea collection pieces that we have on site. And we're going to talk to you guys about the history of tea and have a little tea party. So please feel free to brew your own tea, make your own crackles or marmalade, and join us on Zoom. So have a great rest of your day.